Hello, my name's Mitch Castor. I'm an artist from Denver, Colorado. Started out as a courtroom artist, a news artist for a station in Denver. And, um, and then after about 11 years of doing that, I moved on and decided to try fine art. So I started painting and eventually got into the galleries. I've been doing that since. I also teach at the Art Students League of Denver. And I've always done figure drawing, so that's what I'm teaching now is life drawing classes at the Art Students League of Denver. My background learning, I studied with a man that was a student of George Bridgman. And Bridgman was a artist in the 1920s teaching at the Art Students League in New York City. And he taught kind of a different approach to doing art. He had kind of a structural approach. So it was more sort of a breakdown of the figure into geometric lines to begin with, and then finishing out with more organic shapes, lines. So a lot of my training was from the figure, and it was kind of unique during that time because it was the mid-70s, and a lot of colleges had sort of dropped figure drawing at the time. The courtroom art was always an interesting period of my life. Courtroom art here was done because cameras were banned from courtrooms, going all the way back to the Charles Lindbergh case, which was kidnapping of his child. So there was a guy, Bruno Hauptmann, that was on trial for that. And ever since that trial, they decided not to have cameras in courtrooms. Reason being that at the time the cameras were loud and required a lot of lights, and it made it difficult to conduct a trial without everybody sort of being aware of the cameras and all the noise. So we eventually, as cameras have gotten better, they're allowing cameras now in most courts. The federal courts are the only ones that have decided totally against allowing cameras. So there's still a need for courtroom artists, but not as much. Local trials, murder trials that are done on a more of a local, it's district court level. They have a choice where they can ban cameras, but most of the time they allow cameras. And the federal courts have stuck to absolutely no camera, and that was they were thinking about changing. I guess one of the judges told me. But after the O.J. Simpson trial and all the grandstanding that went on, they decided against allowing cameras. Probably the largest trial I did was I worked for NBC and did the Terry Nichols trial, which was one of the guys accused of the Oklahoma City bombing. And I also did a sketch of Timothy McVeigh, but I had to do that from the monitors. It was done from the prison, and it was his last appeal before death sentence. He was actually appealing to have the death sentence done rather than to spend more time waiting, I guess. I've got courtroom art too, if you want to see what that kind of looked like. I can grab one of those real quick for you. Yeah, this was from the bombing trial. Let's see. There we go. The Terry Nichols bombing trial. I'm trying to see if we got him in there. I think so. And had done another kind of, sometimes it was mainly for TV that I was doing courtroom drawing, but I would also be picked up sometimes by the newspapers. So I got the cover on the Rocky Mountain News when they had they were having a hearing about organizing a grand jury for the John Benet Ramsey case that they thought was going to go to trial and never did. She was a little girl, kind of a beauty contestant little girl that ended up murdered in Boulder and got a lot of press and interest. So anyway, got this piece in that was on the cover of the Rocky Mountain News. Yeah. So that's one example, but a lot of times picked up by the newspapers as well as television.
You also traveled from courtroom to courtroom.
I didn't do too much of that. I traveled a few times. I went out to Seattle for there was a racketeering trial for kind of a group of neo-Nazis that were on trial. Racketeering meaning that they were being charged with multiple charges, including robbing armored cars. It was quite an interesting group. And then I was in Boise for another sort of neo-Nazi thing going on there, and it was that a radio host in Denver that was very popular was murdered by murdered actually by, well, there were 4 people involved, but the first suspect that we had gotten was arrested in Boise on different charges, but what happened was they found the murder weapon that was used on Alan Berg, the guy I was talking about. So we went out to Boise to interview him at the jail and to sit in the trial that he was on. He was on trial for different charges at that time in Boise. And I just went up to Cheyenne. So I didn't do too much traveling, but just a little bit in the West here. I would travel in Colorado. So I did some cases down in Pueblo and Colorado Springs and Denver mainly. Denver area.
Detach yourself from these traumatic cases.
Yeah, not sure I always did. It just almost seemed unreal, but yet at the same time it was very real. You'd be sitting in the courtroom, and sometimes I'd be sitting next to, the parent of somebody that was on trial. So it was pretty interesting. But it's just, I guess I detached because I had a job to do, and I just was focused on, I have to draw this, I've got to do that, no matter what the circumstances were. So it kind of helped me get used to people around me when I was working, because I would have a lot of people kind of interested in watching the drawing happen. And like I said, sometimes I was with family of either the person on trial or a family of victims sitting next to me. It's kind of interesting, but you kind of detach just because the work you have is kind of keeps you busy and focused. Well, I enjoyed the court stuff, but I think over time it was just getting more difficult. My eyes weren't as good as they should be, and so I was kind of struggling with that. And then I had left the station. Things had changed so much from the job that I started with. I started in 1977, and we did news graphics by hand and nothing digital yet. And then computers came over the time. And by 1988, I really didn't want to be sitting in front of a computer in a closet, basically, doing news graphics that way. So I decided to move on, but I did keep on doing courtroom drawing for several more years after that, but I had stopped doing the news graphics. But eventually it was, there were just fewer trials because they had started allowing cameras more. And then it just became a little bit difficult for me too, because I like to paint at night and I would get calls early in the morning to go to court and I was ready for bed. Oh yeah, yeah. I kind of started out with that interest. It actually started when we took a trip to Tahiti. That was kind of my dream trip, and so we did that back in 1982. And I really loved the culture there and the dance, and it got me kind of excited about coming back and possibly painting some of my own culture. My family's from Mexico, and so I wanted to do Mexican dance, and we had a friend too that was involved in Spanish dance, so I started doing paintings of Mexican Spanish dance and Native American because I was interested in the sort of the indigenous peoples dance and culture. So that led to a friend of mine who was working on he was working with the Colorado Ballet, decided to do a fundraiser with them, and he found out that it really was not his bag. He didn't enjoy that sort of thing to paint. So he knew that I was doing a lot of dance pieces, and so he asked me if I would take that over, and I thought that's a great opportunity. When I was going to art school down the block, we used to have a dance studio, and they would let me, a friend of mine and myself, go in and sketch when they were having dance classes. So I always wanted to do that. But it goes back to just having that background and figure that dance was a natural direction to go. Painted Carol several times. I was doing a series of paintings from art museums, like the National Gallery, and just shooting people, kind of enjoy painting the gestures of the people looking at famous paintings. That was really kind of fun because I got to paint the famous paintings in the background. But yeah, I painted her a few times when I couldn't get somebody else to stand in front of the painting. And then I also painted Carol. She's a flamenco dancer, so I've done a lot of paintings of her flamenco dancing. Yeah, Carol became a flamenco dancer. She had seen Rene Heredia, who was living at LA when Carol was 6. She saw his performance, and then she learned later, when maybe she was 40 years old, maybe, that he had moved to Denver and was teaching classes, and so she started taking classes with him and did really well, and ended up becoming one of his main dancers for a while. And that was great for me because I got a good flamenco model, and just fun to paint Carol. Yeah, I had worked many years with the Colorado Ballet. That's the Phil Levine, the guy I mentioned earlier, who didn't really like doing ballet, kind of asked me if I would take over his project, which was a fundraiser. And ever since then, I was invited for many years to. I could go to dress rehearsals and photograph, and I could even go down to the studio and get sketches when they were practicing. But I would get the dress rehearsals and then do paintings from the studio. So it's always been something. I'm still doing some ballet pieces. I even have one here that's a pastel. I don't know if you can see too well on there. But this is a pastel. I just always enjoyed the dancers. Props. So.
A state with spectacular landscapes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to do some plein air, but I'll do that maybe in the summer. But most of the time, I like to paint at night. But I'll switch my schedule because sometimes we have to travel. Mostly when we've traveled, we're kind of scrambling to see everything we can see and go everywhere we can. So I really don't haven't really set up plein air, but instead do a lot of photography. And we enjoy our hikes. So yeah, I get my material that way. But I would like to try some more, try a little bit more plein air because I love working from life. But I've done mainly working from life with models. So figurative.
Behind you, did you take those pictures?
There are drawings of lighthouses right there, and then this one is that's a waterfall in Rocky Mountain National Park, and these were some models that we worked with up in Pine Junction, Colorado. So it's all artwork. The lighthouses are pencil drawings. Interested in the lighthouses, yeah. Just love the meaning of the lighthouses. Yeah, that they kind of guide people when they're lost, for one thing, and keep people out of trouble. And they're really kind of, I like them because they're also unique. And I guess that's the idea, is when people were sailing up and down the coast, they would know where they're at. In the daytime, they could see the shape and the markings on lighthouses, and at night, they would have the lights kind of go at different rates, so that the people in the ships could tell where they were by just if they knew how many times it's supposed to turn within a minute or so. It could tell them. It could let them know where they're at, and to be safe and stay away from them running ashore. Haven't really painted cats. Been doing a lot of paintings of wildlife. A lot of the paintings that I've been doing lately have to do with nature, whether they're landscapes or wildlife. So yeah, I've got a lot of new paintings that are of wildlife right now. But I haven't really painted my cats. Yeah, when we went, you can actually drive up to a good portion of Mount Evans, and that's right outside of Denver, about an hour and a half to get to the top of Mount Evans. And I think it's about that. Anyway, up at the top, there's bighorn sheep that that are up there, as well as mountain goats. So I've been doing some paintings of bighorn sheep and mountain goats. The bighorns, though, the paintings I did are of female ones. We didn't have the big male rams weren't up there at the time. But all kinds of wildlife up there. I want to do a painting in the future of what do you call marmots, yellow-bellied marmot. whistle pigs, another name for them. But they live high up. This is going up on the top of a 14,000 feet plus. That's as high as they get in the continental U.S. And then up in Alaska, Mount McKinley gets up to 20,000. But our highest are 14. And there's like 58 14ers in Colorado, so there's a lot of them. But you can actually drive up to the top of Evans and then hike the rest of the way up. And Pikes Peak too is another that you can actually drive up. So kind of fun. You can take a nice hike at the top without having to do a really strenuous hike. And then just always looking for wildlife. One of the places that I see a lot of wildlife and get material is it's the old Rocky Mountain Arsenal, which is where they used to store nerve gas and all these and stuff. And they actually even made mustard gas there in World War I. But it's an area that they had to clean up, and when they cleaned it up, the animals kind of moved in. The bald eagles moved in, and it became a wildlife habitat. And so we go there if you want to see deer. They have mule deer and white-tailed deer, so a good source for deer. They also have a buffalo herd that's came from the herd up in South Dakota, I think they said. So lots of good material there. And then I love birds, so any lake we go to, I'm always on searching for geese and ducks and even what do they call it? Herons and the other egrets, yeah, snowy egrets. We see a lot of those in Colorado, which you wouldn't expect. Okay, yeah, I just kind of got involved with this organization, ASMO, which is the remember what it stands for, American Society of Marine Artists. I love anything to do with the ocean and water. It's one thing that we kind of miss in Colorado. I actually come from Oakland, the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was used to having a lot of water around. But when we vacation, I love to go anywhere with the ocean, especially Florida. And like I said, we had gone to Tahiti and different places where there's a lot of ocean. Just interest. I love the water, being around that. And then being in asthma, you can also it's not doesn't have to do with living on by the ocean, but you can actually anything to do with water. So you can do waterfowl that's in the lakes here, or waterfalls, and any of that kind of fits in. But I love, I enjoy really painting water a lot. It's fun in so many different ways that it reacts, whether it's reflective or broken up colors and shapes. It's kind of a fun challenge, and always the colors can be really interesting too.
Very interesting that you work at night.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you bring daylight in?
Well, I'm working in artificial light, but it's, paintings are going to hang inside under artificial light, so I don't worry too much about having to get that north light, daylight balanced color that way, but instead kind of paint it in the type of lighting that it's going to hang. So that hasn't been a problem. And then I'm not always on nighttime, but I'll do that for periods of time, and then we'll switch to day for a while. So it's not always, but I kind of prefer it. I like I guess just the energy of the night. It's easier to focus and no phone calls or just the noise of the day. Everything's kind of quieter and peaceful. Yeah, we had a trip to Ireland that we loved. I'm trying to remember what year that was. It was like 1996, I think, that we went to Ireland, um, and just had a great time. I love the more sort of rural, being out in the rural areas more than the big cities. Um, but yeah, we had a great time in Ireland. Saw a lot. We didn't make it up to Northern Ireland. I'd like to go back there and see that area. But we kind of made a circle around Ireland and started out in Dublin and then circled back and flew back out of Dublin. But we made a big circle around the um, Ring of Kerry and Dingle Peninsula. Just even went out to the Aran Islands and spent the night. Just really wonderful. My wife has Irish ancestry, so that was kind of fun. We tried to look for the area where her name came from. And then I had that Ancestry.com DNA test done, and it turns out I thought I was part English, but actually had more Irish than English in the DNA test. So that was kind of interesting. So now I can be connected more. Yeah, we just northern Italy. We were on a tour for that one, and ended up going into northern Italy, the mountains, the Dolomites, and then down to Venice. So we saw some nice parts, but didn't get down to Florence or Rome or Tuscany or any of that area. So that's a trip in the future, maybe. I love Michelangelo's work. I would love to see the real Pieta and his sculpture, the Pieta at the Vatican, and Bernini's sculptures all over Rome. Just two of my heroes. If I was to describe what one of the reasons what I do is I like to paint beautiful things that make me feel good. And so I was trying to put a name to that and thought, oh, well, that's what serotonin does in our bodies when we see something that's very pleasant or things that get you excited. Serotonin levels will rise in you. They're sort of serotonin paintings. I just love, one of the things I really go after with paintings is I want paintings that make me feel good, and so a lot of nature paintings do that, and figurative that I enjoy. Dance, all of that is it's feel good. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not really interested in making any political statements with my art or painting ugly, the ugliness of life. I don't need any angst.
sculptures. You're doing figurative.
Yeah, I haven't done any lately, but I had an opportunity to study with a great Russian sculptor, Valentina Korakov. He studied in Moscow and really had a great background and very, very talented sculptor. But he's a very classical approach to things. But I found it very, very helpful to me to work three-dimensionally, because I had always done a lot of drawing, and I for years I really wanted to work three-dimensional and see what that was like. So I had this great opportunity, but then he left, and since then I haven't really done too much. I had ideas to try some ballet pieces and some dance pieces was my goal eventually, and I still would do it, I think, but I haven't been practicing sculpture lately. Enjoyed both figure as well as portrait sculpture. Try to do that. One of the projects I did recently too was sketches of, it was really kind of fun, but the Denver Public Schools have a Shakespeare festival every year, and it's done outside, so I was able to kind of photograph the kids, and it's really kind of a kick in the pants because they're halfway in Shakespeare costume and halfway in modern, and really fun to do drawings. Yeah, kind of maybe through organizations like the Oil Painters of America or NOAPS, which is the National Oil and Acrylics Painters Society, as well as ASMA, kind of a signature member with those organizations, and they put on some good national shows in different parts of the country. So barring COVID, we would travel to a lot of the shows, and it's really fun, meet other artists, and just to see new places. We had gone to a show, for instance, in Charleston, South Carolina, and just had a really good time seeing that incredible little city.
Did the pandemic have any impact?
Actually, I'm pretty affected by it. I've been with a group since 1987, or actually 89. But we have our own drawing group that gets together every Wednesday night, I mean, since 1989. And this is the first time that we actually had to disband. It's been over a year, and we haven't been able to get back together yet, because there's still a lot of restrictions here where a room you can only have up to 10 people in a studio right now. And we have as many as 30 people in the group, usually about 15 that show up when we get together every week. So I miss that terribly. My artist friends, that's something I miss terribly with this pandemic. And then my teaching has been affected too, where I would have a class up to 18 people usually, and now we're limited to, like I said, 10 people. So that's 8 students, a model, and myself. In classes, and then the model has to wear a mask. I got one of those here. I could show you if you want to see a life drawing with a mask on. It's kind of interesting because it reminds me of an old piece by Thomas Akins. He taught at the Philadelphia Academy, and they had classes there. This was during Victorian Edwardian times. And things were pretty prudish in the U.S. at the time, so they had classes segregated for men and women's classes. And so if you had a man's class, the woman would have to cover her face or cover her genitals, basically. And so there's an Akins piece with her head covered. And it kind of felt like with this. With COVID going on and these drawings that we're doing, we have these masks, covering a good portion of the face, but we're still doing life drawings. I can show you one if you like to see.
Yeah.
Here's one for example. And this is a demo. When I teach, I do a lot of demonstrations, so this is just one of the demonstrations. So I usually have about 20 minutes, sometimes a second 20 minutes to finish a demonstration for the class. but just kind of interesting with the gotta wear a mask. So dealing with that, but hopefully everybody's going to, we'll have enough people to get the immunizations that we might get back to normal pretty soon. But for now, we've had to protect everybody. Younger people are just now getting their shots. I think Colorado right now is at about 40% that have been immunized. And so it's still a little bit more time before we can safely take our masks off and they can loosen up the rules a little bit for the number of people in a building, in a class.
Why do you think artists move away from nudes, although they are so beautiful?
Yeah, yeah. What I've found is that among artists, we trade and we buy each other's work, and that's where you can sell your nudes. But a lot of the public is still a little bit too prudish about that. They don't really. I don't know if it's different in Europe, but in the U.S., people are still kind of funny about hanging nudes on their walls, other than artists who really appreciate it. So it really kind of comes down to what can you sell, and even though I have sold nudes, I think it's most of the galleries they don't really want life drawings. So I've sold some, but not so much. They're kind of interested more in. That's one of the reasons I went towards dance was an opportunity to do something that's figurative, but yet is more something that people who aren't so put off by, I guess, nudity. So sadly, yeah. I'm with you. I wish we could. I wish there was more of a market for nudes, and it's usually real people that really understand art, and like I said, other artists that are interested in the nudes. Whereas the general public, I think, galleries and general public kind of want more of a clothed figure.
So what are your plans?
Well, first thing we want to take a trip up to Maine and just travel up there. We love that area. So places like Rockport, Maine, Camden, on the coast. So kind of think that'll be our first vacation up there. This summer, like I said, I would like to do some plein air painting, and I was hoping to take my paints out to actually to the Rocky Mountain Arsenal, and there's an ode already kind of planning to paint this old ranch house that's on the property, and it's kind of a nice little area. So I thought I'd start kind of train myself a little bit on that, because I've always had a difficult time because the light changes so quickly and everything. I think you have to approach it. You know, your painting style has to adapt for the speed. Get nice color studies and things, so you can take those back to the studio and have better color studies to work from, rather than having to trust what might happen with photography or digital photography. I do a lot of painting now, rather than from photography prints. We put digital photography into a monitor, and so I can actually work from something that has a source of light with it. So that's been a little bit more like the real light, versus having, it has less effect than a printed photography, in that the colors and values aren't as affected as once it's printed.
Long career as an artist.
Mm.
What would you say your most significant accomplishment?
Most significant accomplishment, gosh, it's just been a lot of work. A lot of my painting is really more self-taught than anything. You know, having good instruction there. I had the best teachers for drawing, and so I've always loved drawing, but painting I kind of had to learn on my own. So I feel kind of proud about that, you know, I've been able to learn to paint, and gosh, other accomplishments along the way. I was, you know, proud that I became a courtroom artist, and I got awards for that. So, you know, I felt kind of accomplished in the field that I was at, and now I'm with these organizations. So I'm very proud of being a signature member with Oil Painters of America and NOAPS, as well as ASMA. Those are things that make me very proud. It's being accepted by your peers as you know, a good artist. So I guess that would be it. Yeah, just you know, I'm very proud of being able to sell paintings and you know, make people happy. No, I don't really use a palette knife too much. I use a palette knife just to mix my paints. On the palette, I'll usually work on a glass palette, so I mix a lot with it. But I haven't really done much with, not for a while. I have a painting downstairs that is a Pueblo painting where I actually used palette knife a little bit. I enjoyed it, but haven't lately been doing that. I've tried different things. Did the palette knife, and for a while too, I was texturizing my canvases to get a little bit more interesting textures when I painted on canvas. But lately, I've just been doing the paint in pastel, and no palette knife, but brushwork. No, I haven't done much of that. Just never really excited me. I like representational, and just never really had the desire to do much abstract. It's fun sometimes just to kind of handle backgrounds with something that's more representational, or more realism, I should say, with kind of just an abstract handling of the background. But mostly I'm kind of hardcore modern realist, I guess. Not too into directly abstract. It just doesn't excite me. I respect it. You know, I respect the people that do it and the artwork, but it's just not my bag. Yeah, I have to grab a card with my website. I don't actually know it in my head here. So, oh, okay. Yeah, I would invite anybody to come to the shows that I'm in. My website, which has drawings, paintings, sculpture, and certainly invites you to come see if you like the work. See if it gets you a smile there. And then I'm in a lot of shows kind of around the country through Oil Painters of America, and the ones that I mentioned, Oil Painters of America, NOAPS, National Oil and Acrylic Painters Society, and the American Society of Marine Artists. Those are in different places each year, so if you keep your eye open, oftentimes be in those shows. And then I have local shows now and then, but right now, my Denver gallery had closed, and I'm just in a new one now in Golden, Colorado, which is right next to Denver. And I don't know what that holds in the future as far as shows go, but that's a possibility. I also show down in New Mexico, in Taos, New Mexico, and I also have representation in Santa Fe, but right now it's a representative rather than a gallery. Yeah, we love New Mexico and the culture down there, so love the trips, and I used to do a lot of paintings of the area there too, because I love the Native American culture down there, the Pueblo culture, and the beautiful architecture, the adobes, and strong culture, and we love the food down there. Yeah, and I guess if I did have something to add, it would just be that right now a lot of the artists in the U.S. are kind of grieving the loss of Richard Schmid, who's kind of a favorite and has had a lot of influence on a lot of us, my generation and even younger generations. But we lost one of our best artists in the U.S. On the weekend. For me, he was the first art book that I bought. I was given an art book before that, but the first one I bought was Richard Schmid's book back in the early 70s. I used to ditch high school to go down to the gallery downtown and see his works. That's where I kind of discovered his work, the Sandra Wilson Gallery, downtown Denver. But that's kind of what's going on here right now, is a lot of people are feeling the loss of Richard Schmid.